Go for liftoff in T-minus 30.
Stand by for further instructions, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment.
Secondary guidance systems engaged.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, it will be on my mark.
All systems are a go. All systems are a go.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, you are over the target. You are authorized to fire at will.
Hey, thanks for stopping by Minnesota Black Robe Regiment. You guys know me. I'm TC. If you don't know me, you will shortly. If you're tuning in because I have Dr. Bryan Ardis coming on, I'll take that too. No one ever comes on the show to watch it just for me. It's always for my guests or to hear me rant once in a while. Let's get the housekeeping out of the way. Ladies and gentlemen, if you would like to get some merchandise, I think everybody knows I like to sell my stuff. If you'd like to get some merchandise, I got mugs, coffee. I mean, how can my own coffee? I know that's the thing now. Everybody does coffee, but you can email me at mbrrpodcast@yahoo.com. And I've got a lot of stuff, actually, a lot more than you can see up there. Don't forget, I do have a fundraiser going on between now and the end of the month for my friend Dana Stevens. She's also my co-host for my Behind the Curtain show on Rumble, where we talk about particular protocols that are known to drastically affect people's ability to survive under the influence of the COOF, as we refer to that particular virus, because they still like to take us down for stuff like that. But we're doing a fundraiser for her until the end of this month. I'm going to be doing 15% of my proceeds from YouTube and Rumble and Subscribestar and my merchandise sales to her, and anybody who goes directly to Dana's GoFundMe directly, probate attorney fund, or actually I think it's legal defense fund now, over on for Dana Stevens on Go Give Send Go, they will get, if they do $100 or more, they'll get $15 credit towards anything in my merch catalog. That is for her and the legal battle that she's now taking up against the hospital that was responsible for the death of her mother down there in Orlando, Florida. So Dr. Ardis is waiting in the wings, and those of you who don't know, I'm not real big on titles, so if you hear me referring to him as Bryan throughout the course of our conversation, it's not an issue of disrespect or a lack of acknowledgement that he has a lot more education than I do. It's just I want this to be personal. And on this very first episode of the second season of TC and Friends Monday Night Musings, I thought we should make it as personal as possible. So I thought I'd bring on somebody I never talked to before. It's always a good start, right? But some of you do know that there was a documentary that came out last year called Watch the Water, and I took some exception to it. There were a lot of really good points to it, and there were other things that I took some exception to, and I'm like, I really wish I could talk to Dr. Ardis. I wish I could talk to Bryan, and I didn't know how to go about doing it. I can research all sorts of things, but finding people on the internet, I am no good at. And then a mutual friend of mine, who is friends with somebody who's associated with Bryan, said, "Hey, I can connect you with someone who could connect you to Dr. Ardis." And we played the seven degrees of Bryan Ardis, and I was finally able to pin him down, and we were able to connect tonight. So the conversation tonight is not going to be just about, how do I want to say this? We're not going to be delving into stuff that he's already talked about. I want to delve into his life since the documentary, and I'm going to delve into a little bit of where he's at, where he's found himself, and the impact that that's had. And as I bring him in here, I want you guys to be paying close attention to him. The guy's sharp. even in those places where I might have had some disagreements with some of the stuff that was said and Watch the Water, the guy's sharp. And like I said, clearly more educated than me. I just sit behind a microphone and a camera and talk a lot. But that's also what he's been doing today. I am his 9th interview, so I'm saving the best for last. But Dr. Ardis, thank you so much for being patient while I did my intro, and thanks for doing this. Uh-oh. I muted you by accident. Thanks for
You're welcome. It's great to be here, man, and I'm excited to hear that you've got your own shows, your own merchandise. That's phenomenal. I actually don't do a good job with merchandise whatsoever. I didn't even have a show until I started speaking out about the remdesivir protocols and trying to save people's lives in relationship to COVID. And so I needed a place to direct them just to get documents. And so that's what I was doing, was forcing them to a site. Then I was like, man, it's time to educate these people. So that's the whole reason why the site even exploded. I love your merchandise. It's great. Keep it up.
Yeah, it's really fancy too. You can see I've got it all, just randomly scattered across a bookshelf over my head. So
yeah, perfect. Man.
And the one thing that's up there that's most prominent is a book by Scott Horton, and that's not for sale, by the way. It's personally autographed for me when I met Scott at a Defend the Guard event up here in Minnesota. So I just put it up there to rub it in that I met him.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it.
And
it is enough already after 3 years. Enough already.
Well, yeah, and his is about the war on terrorism, but I think you might be right. After 3 years, enough already.
I've had enough of it. Enough. This whole narrative needs to end.
I think you and I would be in agreement that we probably both had enough of it about the middle of March of 2020.
Yeah, you ain't kidding. I did.
So
yeah, in fact, I'm always surprised when there's still events and they're asking me to come speak at places. I'm like, aren't people tired of listening to the same awful narrative that they're lying to us about the same thing? Oh my goodness, for 3 years now. Come on.
Yeah. Oh, well, if it went away, it might be easier to be tired of it. But the problem is it's not going away, and now we have new strains coming at us. And as the city of New York has announced, they want everybody to recognize that this new strain is very dangerous to you if you've been vaxxed. So go ahead and get the jab again to protect yourself. I don't get it, but I want to.
At what point do we say they just don't work and it's obvious? How about that?
Yeah, well, that would, once we committed to a course, we just not, we're nothing if not doggedly stupid. So
it appears so.
I want to start off by offering a mea culpa of sorts, in that when I watched through the documentary, I was a little hard. I think because I was getting so many text messages and Facebook messages. I'm not allowed on Facebook anymore, but Facebook messages and Twitter messages going, "Hey man, you got to watch this. It's amazing." So I had my expectations were like way up here. And then I watched it, and like I said in the opening, there was a lot of stuff that you said I was like dead on with, conspiracy and not theories, but actual conspiracy, hiding, not telling the full truth. Definitely something going on with the R word. Definitely something going on with the coof. That's my euphemistic terminology for that virus. And I was like, there's so much we agree on, but then there were some things that were happening, and throughout your conversation with Stu. And I was like, no, like I can agree with him, but I really want to, I wanted to break some of this stuff down. And so I was pretty hard on that stuff. But then word kept coming back to me that after the documentary came out, there was kind of a dust up and some flare up that kind of followed on the coattails of that. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? And so there again, word kept coming back to me like, well, the documentary maybe wasn't put together in a way that had Bryan been, responsible for directing, producing, and all that on his own, it maybe didn't come out exactly the way it would have if it would have been just a straight news piece. And I'm like, oh, so then I felt a little guilty because I'm like, well, maybe I was a little bit too hard on him. And then I'm like, well, how am I ever going to, well, great. Now it's out there. Now he's never going to talk to me. And then my friend Ann Quiner and I covered a story of Ann and her husband and what
Horrible
happened.
story.
Yeah, horrible, just absolutely horrible. And I'd love to, not in a joyous way, but I'd love to really connect you with my co-host of Behind the Curtain, Dana Stevens, because she's got a story that's very compelling. And uh, it and it's the same thing. It's horrible, and every one of these stories is horrible. And we just covered a story from Behind the Curtain about the hospital out in Clovis, California, with Thomas. Can't remember. Is it Suggs? And they immediately administered the R word to him, even though the family told him no. And so I'm like, man, how am I ever gonna get a chance to talk to him and say, hey, let's talk about this, not from the perspective of the documentary, but you really put yourself out there in this. And there was a lot of backlash from people who are on our side, even,
Oh
which
yeah.
to some degree I could understand, because there were, like I said, there were some things when it comes to the etymology of words and epistemology and all of those other things, where I'm like, okay, I think we're going to disagree on some of this. But you sacrificed a lot in by way of reputation. And is that true? Did you face a lot of backlash? Somebody reported to me that you were disinvited almost immediately afterwards from a few events because of some of the things that the documentary purported to have you saying.
Yeah, so it was true actually, and this is not a joke. So I'll kind of set the stage for this documentary. I didn't go to Stu Peters to actually film a documentary. I actually didn't even go there to do an interview with him. I actually flew up 2 weeks earlier than when we filmed the interview, because I actually went and visited with Mike Adams. Was the only person I went and visited with prior to talking to anybody. I went to Mike Adams down in Austin. We actually, this is not a joke, in the early parts of May of 2020, I went into a field with him 15 miles away from any antennas or technology, away from phones. And I had a 5-hour conversation with him about what I was uncovering over the last 5 months of research. And I asked him about the best ways to present this to the world. I wanted to use him to help me bring it, which would be an interview showing the documentation and get his input. So that was my first conversation. After that conversation, I got very paranoid, because Mike was like, you better get off your computer and stop looking at this stuff. You're going to be a target. And I was like, oh man, you're freaking me out here, man. I was doing it all by myself, and I already had this impression that something bad was going to happen to me when I brought this out. And the only reason was, it didn't really hit me until I got to the researcher out of the University of Pittsburgh, when he was murdered in May of 2020, right before his press release the next morning. That's when I got a sense of, oh my God, there are really people who will try to silence people from getting information out. And it never really hit me with that kind of reality then. And I actually consulted with somebody and asked them who they thought I should visit with to get security, seriously, weapons or security in my house before I unleash this information. This is not a joke. This is what I was doing. And they told me, go visit Stu. He's a previous, what was he?
He was about me. He was about, yeah. Stu's had many manifestations in his life.
So I'd been very close to Stu. We had texted and done shows for 2 years now. And I actually just texted him and said, hey man, can I come visit with you? I have something to ask you privately, but I don't want to do it over the phone. So I flew up there, asked him about security detail, asked him about weapons. And Stu couldn't believe it. He was like, you flew all the way up here to ask me about this? And I said, yeah, I don't own a gun. I don't own anything. So I just want to know, who do I hire to help to protect my family? I have 5 children and a wife, and I need to take care of them. I want to make sure nothing bad happens. What do I do? And he goes, what in the world would you be a target for? And I said, I'm about to release something on the world. And when I told him, he was like, do you have documentation on this? And I said, yeah. And he goes, why don't you come back in 2 weeks and show it to me? Now, I just want you to know, 2 weeks later, I fly up. We do a 5-hour in-person interview that you saw as a Watch the Water documentary. It was 5 hours, and I had one document after another. And he just couldn't believe I had that much documentation. He did not think I had that much stuff, but I had a whole huge briefcase full of documents chronologically outlining all of it.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, anyway, at the end of the interview, he was so overwhelmed by all the documentation. He didn't know what to do with it, really. What is he going to do with it? He's a podcaster. So he hired a crew to come in. He was so moved by it that he made and hired a group to create a documentary out of the interview. Now, I didn't know he was going to do that. In the 2 weeks it took for the film crew he hired to turn it into a documentary and add all the bells and whistles to the documentary, I went to Mike Adams a few days later after I filmed it with Stu, and in that meantime went and filmed with him in studio. And he couldn't believe what I brought either. But Mike allowed me to show every document on a screen behind me, and it was just one after another. It was 5 hours. It was so much stuff that he actually turned it over to his team and said, we're going to have to divide this into 3 chapters. And I said, out of respect for Stu, I told him he can release his interview first. And it was just an interview, I thought. It turned into a documentary. And then the minute his documentary ended is when Mike Adams pushed out the first chapter, second chapter, the next day, third chapter, the third day. And I had Ann Vanderstill and Scott McKay, who I'm very close to. I actually filmed with them also before Stu released the documentary, and they all released it to their audiences all at once. And this was really just me trying to see, can I get it out to as many platforms as possible with people I'm intimately connected with who do trust me, and see if I could just get it in front of enough eyes to where they're not really going to take me out or hurt me or hurt my family. That's really what I was trying to do. I watched the Watch the Waters documentary. I did not select the title. I didn't talk about any part of the filmmaking. I never even saw it until it was live. So when I watched it, there was only one thing missing, that I had actually asked the production team for 2 weeks to make sure you just have to include this one document. And I was hoping that would wrap it up, but they didn't include it at all. And that was okay. I just wished it was there. It's one thing to bring up something. It's another to show the evidence. And there was evidence. I mean, there was an Italy study conducted in June of 2020. It was finalized. They submitted the information for publication and peer review in June of 2020. Italy researchers confirmed that in the blood and feces of all COVID-19 patients only, not those who didn't test positive for COVID, only the positive group, they actually identified with 3 different lab testing techniques to confirm it. There was over 36 different animal venoms only in COVID-19 patients. And I was so badly wanting them to make sure that's how it ended, and it wasn't in there at all. So I was very, very, very appreciative of the documentary. I mean, it had millions of views around the world. It was the sensational part of the documentary, what people do with documentaries and filming and editing. It made a massive splash worldwide. I knew before any interviews that I was going to be dismissed from events, shunned, dismissed, ignore him, don't talk to him anymore. And it was interesting. I was actually prepared for the month leading up to me producing the interviews or conducting interviews. I actually told my wife, you can count on me being excluded or kicked out of almost every event from here on out. And I didn't mind. I just needed to tell the world what was bothering me. And it just so happened there was only one event I was actually excluded from. It just happened to be the very next week. And Pierre Corey and FLCCC.net pushed the To Save a Generation tour, which was a 7-city tour in Florida, all in 7 days that I was a part of. He told them they would not participate, nor would they help fund or sponsor those events if I was included. So I was actually dismissed immediately. I was the first censored in the Don't Censor Us movement. Censor him, don't listen to him. So it was pretty upsetting to a lot of the audience people. The hosts were all upset. They really were mad. And but anyway, they went through with it. But it's the only one I've actually been added to. There's never been one I'm aware of that I've ever been excluded from ever since. But we've been very busy. It's been very exciting. I'm one of very few looking at this, and a lot of people are very, very on board with it now, and it's very exciting. I've just been relentlessly showing evidence after evidence after evidence after evidence that this is what they've been working on for decades. Actually, they've been working on this for almost 100 years. I didn't know it till you find the documents and the research studies. But yeah, it has been a very, very surreal experience and an exhausting one at that. I have probably conducted at least 800 interviews since the Watch the Waters documentary dropped. And it really has been making sure that audiences see the documents they may not have seen in that presentation. because there wasn't a lot of documents. It was just a lot of information, and I thought it was a very well done. Obviously, from a film perspective, I personally always present with the paperwork behind me or in front of you, so that you can see what I'm quoting and what I'm seeing, and that just wasn't how that was constructed. But every other interview since then has been that way, which has been very helpful.
Well, I'm sure you've probably been pretty clear on that, like going forward. Like,
Right.
okay, no, I have paperwork, and I have some very key things that I believe need to be out there. So I'll do this, but it has to be my way. And it's really hard. You don't want to go into a situation and make demands, but you, after what you went through, and a 5-hour interview, 5-hour conversation, to be condensed down to an hour and almost 30 minutes, or no, an hour and 10 minutes or something like that, to have it condensed down to that. And then, and as we're wont to do in our modern society, we sensationalize everything. Everything's, sound bites and, clickbait. And I hate that
I am
particular.
not that guy. I don't like that either.
And that's one of the things that I heard, was that you're not into sensationalism.
I'm not an alarmist. I hate doing that to people. I'm not an alarmist. In fact, I actually would call Stu and go, stop scaring people about the water before this comes out. If I was going to call it anything, it would be if it was me and I was producing it, and he did a great job. I loved what he did. I loved it. And it actually got to a lot of people around the world, no matter how controversial it appeared at first. A lot of people watched this thing. It's pretty incredible that it went so far, and it wouldn't have gone that far without Stu. I guarantee it. But I did absolutely want to make sure I'm very clear. I'm not an alarmist, and I don't want to scare people out. If I was going to call this anything, I would call it "Look for Venom." I mean, that's what I would have said. Just look for Venom. It's in every aspect of COVID. Just go look. Look at it. It's so crazily obvious once you look. And it's been pretty fun to have a lot of medical professionals look and then back me up. At the same time, there's been some people that have been very openly against it. In fact, I'll tell you, this morning I woke up to a text from Dr. Tal Braun, who works directly with the FBI and the CIA. He sent me a text this morning, and he said, Richard Fleming's at it again. He just posted on Twitter that venom in blood doesn't cause blood clotting. And a video that Dr. Tal Braun showed was of a guy putting 1 drop of viper venom in blood, and he swirls it, and then it clots, and he pours it out. And Richard Fleming's Twitter post this morning was, that is disinformation and misinformation. He said, you can just swirl blood and it just clots like that. You don't need venom to do it. And then Tal Braun texted me and he goes, hey, where's that copyrighted poster from Richard Fleming? So I sent it to him, and he reposted it on Twitter and goes, is this not your document? It actually says on his 2021 copyrighted SARS-CoV-2 origins document that cobra toxin is the spike protein, which is king cobra venom, isolated from the snake. So he put it on there, posted it, and he goes, hey, Dr. Fleming, is this actually your document? Now, the truth is, I wasn't trying to be controversial or step on anybody's toes. I was actually trying to bring light to people who are medical professionals who know how to treat that stuff in their hospitals, ER centers. If you know what the weapon is, you already know the antidotes. Just go use them. You'll save tons of lives on top of what you're already doing. It's going to be phenomenal. But anyway, it's pretty interesting to see that stuff kind of go on behind the scenes.
If we can, I want to touch on the not the purely scientific aspect, but a scientific perspective as it regards the more spiritual end of what you were saying, because this is one of the areas where I took some exception to what was in the documentary, and now knowing that maybe not everything, and obviously in an hour and some, in 100 minutes, maybe, I don't remember.
It was 48 minutes.
48 minutes. Was it 48 minutes? I just talk a lot, so that's why my rebuttal video went a little long.
48 minutes.
But so in a 48-minute pared down from a 5-hour conversation, they spent a pretty heavy amount of time parsing the spiritual aspect of this. And I'm obviously never going to downplay the spiritual perspective of any of the battles that we're fighting. But one of the things that I took some great exception to was this idea that arose, and there again, I don't know how much it was actually fleshed out in the 5 hours, that somehow they're gearing. There's this, because we've heard this from other people, that they're trying to change. They're trying to go this transhumanism. They're trying, through genetic manipulation and technological manipulation. And one of the things that arose in the documentary was this idea of injecting the DNA of the enemy, the serpent, into us. And that is an area where I'm just like, okay, not that the spiritual side isn't important, but let's stick to the scientific reality of, is that even a possibility? And I would say scientifically and spiritually, that's just not how it works. And so I'm going to ask for clarification there. Was that even the big brunt of your conversation, or was that even a big focus of your research? Because it seems to me what you're saying now is like, that's really not what my focus was. My focus was more on, let's just pay attention to what's going on here and let's talk about the reality. Where is this coming from? But did you ever actually take a position that they're trying to change or manipulate the human DNA into being more like that of Satan?
No, I actually just said, if you actually watch the documentary, if you ever do, but I just said, this is way more evil than you even know. Now, I consider it being evil if you lie to people about what you're injecting into them. So this is a flat out lie. So I consider that evil. There's nothing good about that. So that's about as spiritual as I got. And then I did say this. I said, what's interesting about this? If mainstream media is as controlled as we believe it is, the people that I'm conversing with in these audiences, if you believe that it's as orchestrated and controlled as you think it is, the Wall Street Journal happens to be one of those papers y'all believe is controlled. In February of 2020, Ben Zimmerman, the journalist, wrote an article, and it was titled, "The Naming of the Pandemic is Significant." And he was suggesting that the significance was behind one word that all these organizations around the world were putting into a raffle to name the virus pandemic. And the only word they all had in common, some called it the C-19 pandemic, some called it the coronavirus pandemic, other people called it the novel coronavirus pandemic. The only word that was in common among all suggestions was the word virus. The word virus was in every single name suggested. And Ben Zimmerman says, what's so significant about the word virus that all organizations are making sure it's in the name of the pandemic? And he says, the Latin historical definition of virus is venom. And I was like, what? The word virus means venom? Holy crap. Amidst everything I'm looking at, they know they're projecting this information to the masses. Like, they know virus means venom. That's weird. I didn't know that. I had no idea. And then I wanted to know, well, if that's the Latin historical definition and mainstream media wants you to know that, what's the Latin historical definition of corona? This is where it took a spiritual religious turn for the interview. And I said, the Latin historical definition of corona, if you look it up, there's 13 actual definitions.
Right.
Only one of them is ecclesiastical, meaning religious, and it is the gold ribbon at the base of a mitre.
Yep.
And I was like, oh my God, if we actually went by Latin historical definitions, this could actually read the Pope's venom. Like, it's the Pope's.
Right. Which is one of the reasons why I even mentioned epistemology and etymology in the opening, was because etymology is like, it's a wonderful science. It's a wonderful philosophical approach, because it is kind of cool to know where words come from. And like, I met a person a few years ago, and their last name was Kohlglazer. And I told her, I says, well, you know what your name means, right? And she's like, I have no idea. And I'm like, well, it means that your family, at some point in the history of your family made glass. And she's like, I had no idea that. And that's why that, etymology is so important.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things that we tend to do is we tend to overanalyze on from an etymology perspective, etymological perspective. We tend to overanalyze things, and we put a lot of meaning into, a word from, ancient Latin or ancient Greek or ancient Hebrew, and we read into it. And one of the places where I see that is oftentimes is within Christianity, is we see people that get really hyper spiritual about things. And like one of my biggest pet peeves today are people who see Satan behind every blade of grass. It's like during the McCarthy hearings, we saw a commie behind every bush and and McCarthy was probably more accurate than most Christians, but as we're dealing with today, but
Probably.
we have this tendency sometimes, and I even had this conversation with somebody last week and even a couple of weeks ago. They're like, "Oh, Satan's doing all this." I'm like, Satan doesn't need to do any of this. This is just evil people doing evil things, and
These are evil humans.
yeah,
Yep,
and
evil humans.
well, it's the enemy. I'm like, no, like because when they use the word enemy, it's always the big E enemy. And I'm like, no, sometimes people are just evil. In fact, not sometimes. Most of the time, people are just evil, and they don't need to be prompted by some pitchfork wielding, horn-headed, forked-tailed, fork-tongued individual. Like he don't care about it. He's more interested in making everything look good, not doing
You're
evil stuff behind the scenes. And that's where I took some exception, because I'm there again, not that we shouldn't look at things from a spiritual perspective, but sometimes just scientifically and socioculturally and sociopolitically, that's all we need to know. There is an agenda by regimist types, oligarchs and technocrats and autocrats and all of this to control. And what's one of the best ways to control is keep you sick and dependent on the system.
Yeah, and I wasn't ever actually before that. It was about 8 months worth before that interview came out, where I actually was very harsh towards several people in the media. I actually would call out Donald Trump. I would call out the Pope Francis. I actually would call him out because he actually held meetings in Italy where he had them the cardinals bring in all the pharmacists in Italy to meet with him. And he would tell them verbatim that what the world needs is more vaccines. And I would say this every time: why is a man of the cloth meeting with pharmacists telling them how to treat patients when he doesn't ever treat patients? I thought his job was to bring you closer to your spiritual whatever, center, God, whatever it is. But that's not what he's doing. And then he told everybody consistently, and he still does, that the world needs more vaccines and that people in the world should see the vaccines as their friends. That's what he calls them. And I'm like, okay, nobody needs to listen to this guy. Stop listening to him. Don't listen to Trump. These people aren't doctors. Go listen to healthcare professionals that take care of people that have health issues. I don't understand why we look at people who don't have any health background whatsoever and trust them at all to care about their opinion about health or vaccines or not. My whole thing is, why are we listening to anybody? I cannot tell you how many people tell me, even this weekend in an event, Dr. Ardis, why is Donald Trump still in favor of the shots? And I'm like, I've never talked to him. He's never talked to me. How do I know what he thinks? But why do we care? He's not a doctor. He does not know if that's going to help you or hurt you. He doesn't know. I mean, he might know if it hurts you. There's no way he could explain to you how it helps you. He's not a healthcare professional. That's not his wheelhouse. If I wanted to know anything from Donald Trump, if anybody asked me, what would I want to learn from him? If I ever wanted to find out how to screw a city and talk a city council out of never having to pay city taxes and let me build a hotel in the middle of your city and not pay any taxes for 40 years. That's what Donald Trump was able to do in Manhattan twice.
I actually respect that.
And if he can do that, that's
taxation is theft for all my libertarian friends.
I'm totally on board with that. I hate taxes. I'm just saying, if I was going to say, you need to go talk to Donald Trump, he knows how to do that. He knows how to pull it off. Go ask him about real estate, how to build a skyscraper, how to get cities to help you do it and incentivize the cities to get you to do it and make it worth your while business-wise. Don't ask him about health stuff. He's not a healthcare professional. Who cares what he says?
Or even how to be one of the goofiest looking men in history and still be able to marry supermodels. I don't know how he...
just let it go. Only listen to healthcare professionals. That's what I would say.
Well, and even there with, only listen to healthcare professionals, you even have to be careful with that too. I mean, obviously you don't be real hard to be a doctor in California as of the 1st of this year.
Oh my God, you ain't kidding. Yes, you were absolutely right.
And I mean, like severe legal penalties for
Yes,
not
it is.
towing the line out there. So
Yeah, so I'll tell you, after the Watch the Water documentaries, it was very interesting. I never ever have ever talked about the Pope. I've never talked about religion ever again. It was really just making sure people got the science. That's all I wanted you to see. Look at the science, look at the research. This is what you need to see. If there was one thing that made it paramount that I show the world, thank God he did talk about it, and he did show the paper in his hand in the interview. I said, when Charles Hoff, MD, out of Canada, said that 60% of his mRNA patients have elevated D dimers, which means they're having blood clots in their body all over the place. And then that's where the term clot shots came from, was his finding of his patients back in the summer of 2021. I never heard of D dimers. Imagine my shock. In fact, I shocked a cardiologist this last week in Florida when I asked him to open his phone and look up medscape.com in the article, How to Interpret Elevated D dimers. He never even saw this. He had no idea what he was looking at. I showed it to him. I said, look, it gives you 5 bullet points of what a medical doctor should look for when you see elevated D dimers. There's only one of the 5 bullet points describe something that could cause the other 4 bullet point blood clots. And it shocked him. He was like, the cardiologist is named Thomas E. Levy out of Miami, 40-year board certified cardiologist. And he did a presentation with me. I invited him to go do presentations for pilots, how to be evaluated after getting the COVID-19 shot to find out if you should go in the air before you go in the air. His first suggestion was the FAA should require an elevated D dimer test on all pilots. And I said, I really love that recommendation, Dr. Levy. And then I said, I want you to read this. Medscape.com, there's an article that was revised and updated even last year. It was first published in 2019, but it's the same 5 bullet points. First 4 describe different blood clots in the brain, lungs, legs, or a reaction to drugs being used to break down blood clots like heparin and warfarin. D dimers is the reaction to blood clots being broken down by your own body to protect you from having strokes. The byproduct is called elevated D dimers. And the substance in your blood that does it, whenever a blood clot is detected, your body releases something called plasmin. Plasmin breaks down the blood clot, and you get elevated D dimers. Well, the 5th bullet point on the interpretation part of that article is snake venom poisoning. And I was like, hey, Dr. Levy, did you know you should look for snake venom poisoning when you see elevated D dimers causing those blood clots? And he goes just like this. Oh my God, Dr. Ardis, you're the man. Now, this is a year after I was looking into this stuff, and he just now saw it last week. And finally, it was like an aha moment for him. And then he goes like this. Well, I recommend that all pilots also get elevated troponin levels. And I said, that's a really good one too. And then I handed him my phone and I said, look at this research paper. And it says males, young males, will die of a heart attack or experience a heart attack more often than anyone else when a male or female is envenomated by a snake bite. And the myocardial infarction, the heart attack, will elicit what's called troponins as a reaction to the venom. 88% of all people that get snake bites will have elevated troponins. And he about lost it. He was like, what? I had no idea. I said, you might as well start looking at the real weapon here. They have figured out how to weaponize synthetic venoms and even get your body to make them. So even like in the context you were saying, I don't think they can damage our DNA and make us more serpent-like. I actually agree with that. I actually think they've just figured out how to, I don't think this actually, I know they know how to do this. They have figured out through what's the term in science, it's called genetic engineering. In fact, if you want to know what genetic engineering is, the Utah State University published a study on genetic engineering just in 2018. And it's titled Synthetic Snake Venom from the Carotid Snake using Genetic Engineering. And they actually show you how they get bacteria called E. coli. When you give it the instruction, it will actually manufacture synthetic snake venom. But they don't just do that in bacteria. They know yeast will manufacture venom, synthetic venoms, and they also know mammal cells will do it. In fact, they're so sure of it, you can go online right now and order venoms from any animal in the world from a whole bunch of manufacturers, and they even let you from home pick what expression system do you want to choose to make your synthetic venom in? And it says you get to pick from bacteria, yeast, and mammal cells. Well, genetic engineering is nothing more than just telling a cell or a microorganism to make something it doesn't normally manufacture. And that's what the mRNA technology is, getting mammals to manufacture something they're not designed to do. That's genetic engineering. They do that with bacteria. They do it with yeast. They do it with mammal cells. I went through this with Judy Mikovits last week in person, and she goes, "Oh, I did this all the time at the NIH." This is what she said. "I did this all the time at the NIH, except we made synthetic venoms out of baculovirus cell lines." And I went, "Oh my God, that's the fourth option on all these manufacturers. And I've never talked about it because I don't know baculovirus." And she goes, "Show me." So I pulled it up and she was like, "Oh my God, there's a company called Aviva, AVIVA, Biological Systems. You can order your own synthetic venoms and you get to pick. Do you want it grown in baculovirus? Do you want it inside of yeast cells, mammal cells, or bacteria cells?" And what we always say, Judy looked at it, goes like this, "Oh my God," just last week, she goes, "Oh my God, what do they think we are?" I said, "Don't we all identify as mammals and have cells inside of us?" I said, "Can they instruct us to do that in vivo?" And she goes, "Absolutely, they can. They know how to do that." I was like, "Oh, this could be the total." The whole plan is genetic engineering, period, and that's to get microorganisms or your cells to manufacture stuff for them. In fact, I'll tell you one of the biggest things. I know you might have had. Look, I expected the whole world to be shocked and be like, "Oh, whatever. I'm not listening to this guy anymore." And then I knew a whole bunch of people would go, "Well, I already trusted him before with the remdesivir stuff. Maybe I should take a second look and sit with it for a while." That's okay too. It just didn't matter. I was really, really feeling pressed to get that out because in the next 2 months, actually this is May, in June of 2022 is when the FDA was voting to give the shots to 0 to 4-year-olds. I have 5 kids. There was no way on the planet I was going to sit another month not telling the world what my worries was, knowing they were about to start vaccinating kids, little bitty kids who did not need it. And if there was any possibility, they're instructing cells to make venom or they were injecting kids with spike proteins that are venom. There was no way on the planet I was going to be okay with that. So there was this part of me that just could not help it. And that really just stems from, they killed my father-in-law in a hospital in February 2020. I will not stop. I don't care what medical doctor says. Don't listen to him. I don't care what podcaster says, rolls her eyes. Don't look at that stuff. It doesn't matter. I'm going to show you what they're lying to you about. And I will continue to show it, but I will not speak on things if I haven't seen enough evidence that backs it up that can explain it to me logically. And then can I articulate it back to you? And that's just how I am. So they took my father-in-law out. I love that guy. My wife adored that man. And you took him from us? No. And you got away with it? Nope, not anymore. Not as long as I can stand on this earth. I will relentlessly show you this is what they're doing behind the scenes. And I'm very, very excited. It's been a very, very long, tiring road. I have actually flown every week for the last 10 months. I've been somewhere on stages or in Capitol buildings presenting information and data. It's just been a really, really, it's been awesome actually, but it's been very tiring. And I really try to keep the noise away. I'm not really worried about what other people think. As long as they're just going to sit open, that's fine. I mean, you can do whatever you want with me. I don't need everybody to like me or care about believing me. But there's enough people out there that when truth is spoken to them, it'll resonate with them, or they'll go look at it themselves. And I encourage everybody, go look up the stuff I'm telling you. Just go look it up.
That's what I'm thankful to hear you say, because that's, as like I said, as I was kind of doing my breakdown of that, and there were parts where I was like, yeah, I agree with this. I agree with this. Yeah. Like good points. And even some of the parts where I'm like, okay, he's got some good points. I'm like, okay, we might be reaching here a little bit, but you were doing that. And I think that might be what was missing the most from the documentary was, like you said, the documentation. Like,
oh, that was the only thing I missed actually and wished was there.
And I think that's, and there again, this is one, like you said, you're not into the, the sensationalism and whatnot. When we take an approach to the things that we're dealing with, and I don't care if we're dealing with this rise, this sudden rise in authoritarianism and fascism, and people get really bent out of shape when I use that term, because everybody who's allegedly on the right side of the political spectrum is now a fascist. I'm like, no, we can't. We have to stop reacting, and that's what we do all the time. Is we react. We have to take a step back. We have to take a really deep breath, and we calm ourselves, center, whatever you want to center yourself. Find your the towel of poo or whatever it is in you, and just settle down and say, okay, let's look at the tangible, which is one of the reasons why I get so bent out of shape with, professing Christians who are like, oh, Satan's doing all of it. He's got it all. He's doing it all. I'm like, no, he doesn't need to. He doesn't need to. And that's why when I heard, and Anne, who's watching, said like, hey, TC, you really need to watch his other stuff. And she did. She said that. So just watch his other stuff. Listen to his other things. And I'm like, okay. So I started to look into it. And then I'm like, okay, I'd like to talk to him. Definitely want to talk to him. That's what I wish would have been there, because we see people just doing this completely reactionary thing. And it's like somebody mentioned earlier in the chat, I'm listening to you and watching the chat to see if anything comes up. So somebody mentioned gas stoves, guy who makes most of my merchandise, like mugs and stuff, Kim and his wife. He said something, made a crack about gas stoves. He goes, now I'm worried about having a gas stove. Which I know what he's doing. But I've literally watched, and I even had some things to say, but I watched everybody going absolutely bonkers about gas stoves. Now, I had something to say about it, but I took a step back from it, read all of the articles, read the way the media was portraying it, and then sat down and broke it down and said, here, the issue is not about gas stoves. It's not about gas stoves. It's about control. And when you have a state that has the power to take your gas stove away from you for your safety, we have a problem. And more people, they're focusing on what they're losing, and I'm like, you've already lost. You're missing the part. You're missing the part that you already lost, and that's the power to push back against the state. And I think had you had the opportunity in Watch the Water to better lay that out, I think there would have probably been a lot less pushback from, talking heads like me who have just this random show in the heart of Southeast Minnesota.
Like, I have nothing but gratitude for Stu Peters and what his team did. I actually was disappointed that there wasn't more documents, because that's how I like to present. I like to talk and show. I don't just like to feel and sound alarms. I actually want to show you. I mean, I was 16 hours a day by myself, researching and printing out documents, highlighting areas, and putting this entire narrative together for 5 months. And once I had enough, I was like, we have to tell the world they're about to vaccinate children. So we did what we did. We attempted to do our best, at least my best. And then you have to kind of trust that media people will take that information, produce the content, edit it, and then present it to the masses. It's very interesting, actually. I've never really been in the media or cared about the media before COVID started at all. So it's been very interesting.
Are you trying to get us taken down? You keep using the two words.
Oh, wait. You just need to tell me which two words I can't use, and I won't use them.
We refer to the R word as the R word.
R word. Okay, got it.
And the
coof.
And the coof, yes.
Okay, in the coof. All right, so we got coof and the R word. Got it. Yeah. All right, I'll handle it from here. But it's really been odd to watch media personalities contest for the information and want to be first. And that's very weird to me. But I want to do it first, and you got to respect me because I did it first, and and I'm like, oh my goodness, seriously? This is what matters the most? It doesn't matter the most to me. I'm trying to get this crap out as fast as possible.
Well, I got news for anybody who thinks they're first on anything. You're normally about 40th in line. You're just there's always somebody out there who's been doing it longer, probably doing it better, just not getting any attention at all.
You got it. Yep.
I run into that occasionally in my own story, and mine is related directly to the the pandemic, in the sense of I was canceled from a career for having my platform, because I wasn't just talking about the virus. I was talking about the tyranny that I had been warning people about for years. I was a deputy for almost 13 years in the third largest metro area in the state of Minnesota. And I had been warning fellow deputies all the time. They'd be talking, hey, did you see this? Hey, did you see this? And I'm said, oh yeah, this has been going on for years. And they'd be like, what are you talking about? This has been going on for years. I'm like, yeah. Well, then, 2020 rolls around, and January and February kind of like, hey guys, watch out, this virus is coming. I says, you remember back in 2009? And they're like, what in 2009? You remember the avian flu? What was it? H1N1. Remember the H1N1 stuff? And when we'd come into work and they'd make us take our temperature, and if we were even 99 or higher, um, we'd end up having to go home. And then some of us were joking about, well, doing the Ferris Bueller thing, putting the light on your forehead before you came in. And they're like, yeah. I'm like, do you remember all of that? And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, that was a precursor to all of this. And they're like, no. And I'm like, yeah, watch. This is what. And so I went through and I laid this all out, and I gave them a timeline. Minnesota's going to do this, this, and this. They're going to mirror New York and California, predominantly California. And by such and such, this is going to happen. And by such and such, they're going to have a vaccine mandate, and they're going to have a mask mandate. And they're like, no. And they started coming up to me and saying things to me like, how did you know? I'm like, it's not that I knew. It was that I watched. I paid attention. And I've been trying to tell you people about this for years. And from my end, it had nothing to do with whether or not I was willing to take the jab. It was the fact that I started to stand up for business owners, and they came after me, and they forced me out of my career because I didn't have the right political position. And so I watch what you go through and what others have gone through. And I'm like, so many of us have been on the front end of this fight. And we have, in one way or another, suffered and lost, or suffered and lost and gained, or some of us have, just been completely devastated. We've had people who've lost family members, people who've lost careers,
How many people have lost their family relationships? I can't even believe how awful that is. You're still alive and healthy, but your parents don't trust you now. Your spouse doesn't trust you anymore because they've created such polarization between vaxxed and unvaxxed. It's horrific. I hate it.
Perfect example of that is one of the people that I went to bat for in 2020. Her name is Lisa Hansen, and she owned a business in a little town about an hour away from here. And she was, I think, the only person in the state of Minnesota that was charged criminally for keeping her business open in the city that she lived in. And she has a daughter-in-law and a son who have absolutely rejected her for not following this stuff. Like, their daughter-in-law was willing to testify against her. She not testify, but wrote a letter to the prosecutor saying that her mother-in-law needed to be dealt with severely. And so you're absolutely right. And that's why when I heard that maybe there was some backlash for you from all of this, I was like, okay, let's have a conversation. What I want to know is, when you said, I mean, were you still you are a chiropractor, not practicing currently?
No, I actually sold my second practice in 2018 and retired. And then I actually set up I actually was a chiropractor, acupuncturist, and nutritionist. I had a practice in Tennessee from 2004 to 2009. I sold that one, moved to Dallas, Texas in 2009, had a practice from 2009 to 2018 called the Ardis Healing Center in Frisco, Texas. I sold it in 2018. It is still running. I still consult them. I still refer patients and people from around the world there. But I actually stepped away from practice. I wanted to take the clinical, actual knowledge I'd gained and principles I'd applied to patients from around the world. I had 16,000 patients in those 9 years, just in Dallas alone, from 16 different countries. I had a really, really successful practice. But what I wanted to do was, instead of one-on-one in a room, what if I could take those same nutritional detoxing and healing protocols and then extend them to people in masses worldwide, like do an online e-commerce kind of store? And so I'd actually launched a brand of an all-natural acne line.
And if you guys are watching, you can find his brand right there on the banner double. I was prepared for that, Brian. So.
You're very good. The Doctor Ardis Show. Yeah, so that's what I was doing before, and we launched in January of 2020. That company, and the very next month is when my father-in-law walked into a hospital, and that whole scenario happened. I was depressed and angry for 3 months. If they don't know my story, it's all over the internet. But my father-in-law was killed in 9 days in a hospital, poisoned with drugs, and for treating the flu, supposedly. Only to find out he never tested positive for the flu, and the drug they gave him was for a bacteria, not a virus, and it caused acute kidney failure in 20% of people you give it to. And that's exactly what happened within 24 hours of him going in that hospital. I went in there on day 5, changed the protocols. He woke up, became conscious, came off of the ventilator, could breathe on his own. That night, the administrators told the doctors they're going to go back on the original protocol and have me escorted out of security with security the next day, and refused to talk to me. That's what I experienced in February 2020. He died 3 days later after he put him on a morphine drip, called it palliative care, convinced my wife's family he wasn't going to live. We're going to have to help him pass peacefully with no pain. That's a flat out lie, by the way. Morphine overdosing for a 4.5 hour period stops the heart from beating and the diaphragm from contracting. That's how you euthanize someone. That's what they're doing to your loved one every time. I've watched it. That's exactly what they do. So after that, I was pissed for like 3 months. And I actually wanted to kill somebody at that hospital every day until Anthony Fauci released his memo on what you can and can't do in a hospital with COVID patients. And that's when I lost it. And hired a publicist for 4 months, went in the media from my dining room table and warned the whole world he's lying to you. And from there, it just went skyrocketed. I had no idea I was going to be asked to be all over the world, it feels like, testifying.
Everybody, we got somebody saying there's a lot of interruptions. So if you guys are having trouble, I don't know what it is. Everything's fine on my end. So
I've been shocked. It's been perfectly clear from your addition on your home this whole time. It's been amazing.
Well, it's I turned off the heater because I was getting warm. So I wanted to live up to my being bundled up here. Where do you see yourself going? Because at some point you're going to have to take a break. I mean, you've been traveling, and
Right.
obviously but where do you see yourself going, from here, post documentary, post research? Obviously you're still doing a lot of digging, but where does this lead to now for you?
There's actually about to be a release of a new documentary, and Stu Peters is going to help push it, but he's not going to be in it. It's actually a documentary that features me, Dr. Tal Braun, and some other doctors. But it's actually called Covenom 19. And Jonathan Otto is the filmmaker. He's been actually building this out over the last 6 months of interviews, me being interviewed, presentations I'm doing, and interviews with a lot of other people. But that will be coming out here in the next couple of weeks. It should be as big or bigger than Watch the Water. And what this does is actually supply evidence, documentation that even since the 70s, this is all video footage and paper trails of government documents where the CIA has been using since the 70s. They have been using experiments using venom on innocent public and citizens starting in the 70s. And it led to a congressional hearing in 1975 by Idaho's Senator Church. And this is where
Commission, yep.
This is where it was disclosed that they had actually created what's called a heart attack gun using venom in an ice dart, and they could shoot an electric dart with an electric gun. They could shoot the ice 100 meters. It would insert a person, and it was so thin, razor thin, it would enter the victim, and they testify. It enters the victim, and they have no idea they've been hit by anything. It just leaves a little red dot. And within 3 minutes, the ice melts, the venom gets to the heart, and causes a heart attack that is undetectable by medical professionals. That was in 1975. And then the Senator Church also asked, for example, what did you do to the FDA building? And this is when the CIA discloses that they actually put king cobra venom inside the water of the FDA employee building, and they put it in the water fountain water lines, and they drank it, broke out into respiratory arrest, and ended up in hospitals. And the Senator Church asked them, were you ever detected? And they said, nope, our experiment went undetected. The medical doctors never figured it out. Nobody figured it out. They used steroids to help stabilize them for a while until they could recover. And then they asked them, how did you get the venom out of the water? And the CIA said, we don't have to take it out of the water. We already know how to make it disappear in less than 2 hours. And they said, how do you do that? And they said, you just double the chlorine. Chlorine denatures and detoxifies the venom and makes it disappear. Now, I didn't even know about this when I came out with the Watch the Waters documentary. People were bringing this stuff to me, and I was like, oh my God, they were doing this 50 years ago? This is crazy. So anyway, it's
anybody who has the faulty idea that we should be trusting the federal state at all on any level is just nuts. I mean, like,
crazy, man.
there's good Tuskegee Airmen, the Operation Mockingbird. I mean, the JFK assassination and the inception of the term conspiracy theory was literally a CIA operation to discredit anyone who questioned how JFK died. So, I mean, what do you do? I'm
not even a hunter, and I know what an exit wound looks like. You know, a bullet came from in front of him to blow out the back of his head. Come on, how can you possibly convince?
From a guy who's never owned a gun in his life.
I've never even owned a gun in my life, and I know the exit wound is bigger than the entry. The back of his head blows off. That means a gun bullet came flying from the front of his head to take that out. There's no way on the planet that dude shot from behind and created that.
That's because you're a conspiracy theorist.
So weird. Weird.
My co-host Dana for the Behind the Curtains, we do that one exclusively on Rumble, by the way, because it's the only place where it's, not gonna like get me chastised by the overlords of YouTube. Dana asked that you check out the documentary that she was part of with her friend Patty. She's right there. He's already got it.
Just looked it up because I've never heard of it. Can't wait to watch it.
It's actually a really moving story, and Dana tells a good portion of her story.
Thank you.
And I definitely want to see you two connect. I think Dana's we had to like cancel and postpone some stuff because I think Dana's heading to Nashville, so maybe you guys can connect. I know Ann's going to be there, right, Ann? Dana hinted that you were going to be in Nashville, so
I will be there. I fly in Friday night. I have to attend a wedding on Friday night, but I will be speaking.
No wedding.
Well,
you go to a wedding anytime.
I will be speaking 12:15 p.m. on Saturday.
In other words, you're going to fly in and go straight to bed.
I'm going to fly in, and I'm going to fly right back out probably that afternoon. Yep. I do
so,
a lot of
tell me a little bit about socially. Are people aware of who you are now? I mean, outside of the different, like I'm sure the QAnon people all, the QAnon people are probably like follow you around looking for autographs, but because they just, but
I don't ask them if they're Q people, but I'm sure.
Don't ask. You'll find out. But what about you're just kind of your average everyday kind of doubt the veracity of what we're being fed by narrative? Are you running into people who recognize you now, who are maybe a little bit more normal?
Yeah, my kids actually notice it the most. And like, for example, we're at a restaurant the other day, and what's interesting is you think it might just be staying in this bubble of this side of this narrative, and it's not getting out into the mainstream audiences. But I have to tell you, I have been many, many times, more often than not, I'm in an Uber somewhere every week, going between hotels, airports, home, all that. I cannot tell you, it's every week I will hear at least one Uber say, what do you do? Or Uber driver will go, well, what do you do? Where are you going? What are you up to? And I'll go, I'm going to go speak at an event. I'm a public speaker is all I say. And they want to know, what am I speaking on? And I'll go, all lies COVID. And they go like this. What about the lie that COVID might not be a bat virus, but it might be venom? And I go like this. For sure, I'll talk about that one. And they'll go, was it like I think I heard it was a Chinese king cobra venom and some other snake. And I'll go like this. Yeah, the crate snake. And they'll all turn around and look at me. Oh my God, it's you. Like, I've seen your documentary. Our preacher showed it in our church for 3 weeks in a row to the audiences, congregations. I've heard this multiple times. But every airplane I ever get on, somebody wants to take pictures. They recognize me from documentaries. Watch the Water comes up a lot. And they want to talk to me, interview me, hang out with me, take pictures with me. And it is very common. We were in a restaurant the other day in Dallas, and I didn't know these people, but two families came up to thank me for presenting information that helped save their lives and their family lives. And I'll just tell you right now, I've had this weekend alone, I was asked to go to attend a random event in Houston with a friend of mine, and he just happens to do photo and autograph sessions for celebrities. And he asked me to come down to Houston and help him get all the audiences through the photo booth and introduce them to the celebrity. Well, the celebrity at the moment, at this time, at this event, was Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair. So I'm standing there introducing the audiences as they come up, as a family would come up. I'd get their tickets, introduce them to Hulk and Rick, and let them do their thing. And this couple walks up who's all decked out in WrestleMania stuff. And they look at me when they hand me the ticket, and the husband goes, "Well, you look familiar." And I said, "I'm Dr. Ardis." And his response was, "Holy sh!" And I said, "Come and meet Hulk Hogan." It was really funny. It's really quite funny to do that. But it is very, very cool. I call them stewardess, but flight attendants all over the country recognize me, kneel down, offer me free drinks for all that I'm doing. But they'll just whisper it to me. "Thank you for all you're doing on behalf of the world." And thank you very much. It's been a very, very cool thing to see.
Yeah, I've never been invited anywhere. So.
My wife on my birthday in November goes, "I want to take you somewhere away from it all. Can I take you to Seattle?" We went to this little lodge over a waterfall. It has a hike down to the waterfall. It's called Salish Lodge.
Yep.
We're out in the middle of nowhere. And we come out of the hotel the first morning, take a left to get on the hiking trail. First two people walking off of it, "Dr. Ardis." And I was like this, "You got to be kidding." We're in the woods. We're in the woods on a trail in Democratic Washington State. And you've got people there wanting to know if I will personally pray for them, take pictures with them, pray for cities, pray for people. What kind of information can we get? What can we share? Anything new? Blah, blah. It has been very fascinating to watch just how far it's reached. And I mean, I've had people track me down at events from South Africa. "Oh my God, this has gone all over Africa. It's been amazing to watch your documentaries." And anyway, I really do hope.
I had one really cool experience. I was shopping at Aldi one time, and I was with family, and this guy kept following me around the store. And I'm like, well, considering what I did for almost 13 years, I'm like, this is probably not going to end well.
Probably not a good idea. Yeah,
probably not a good thing.
Do
He walks up to me and he goes,
Did you say it?
I'm like, "What's up?" He's like, "Minnesota Black Robe Regiment." And I'm like,
Phew.
I'm like, "Yep." He goes, "I watch your stuff." And I'm like, "Hey, can you do that again, but in front of my family?" Can you do it?
That's right. That's awesome. That's really cool. Yeah, it's been kind of surreal. My kids all think I'm some kind of celebrity with every documentary that goes out. My son has an exotic car. He likes going to exotic car meets. That's his thing. He just likes it. I don't love it, but he loves it. And lots of people, they know when they hear his last name. He introduces himself as Bryan Ardis, and he has Ardis Exotic Detailing as a company. Everybody will come up to him and go, "Are you related to Dr. Ardis?" It's all the time for him. And so it's kind of cool for the kids. They love it. You can look up right now on TikTok. I've never been on social media ever in my whole life, me personally, and never have I posted anything. But there are TikTok videos, like 35 million views all over the place, of me talking about nutritional principles or things related to the couth or the coof, whatever we call it.
He got it, ladies and gentlemen. He's a doctor, and it took him this long, but he got it.
I got it in one interview, man. Less than an hour. I got it. Bring it on. If I can learn, they can learn. Don't worry. But anyway, it's pretty interesting and pretty exciting. I have two kids in college, and they'll send me all these random not snaps, but little video clips of TikTok videos, Instagram videos that college kids are sharing with them and asking them, "Is this your dad?" And they're like, "Oh my God, Dad, you have 11 million views on this video, 15 million on this, 50 million on this one." I'm like, that's really great. I'm very excited about that. At least the information's getting out, and I think any way people can share it, it makes me excited that the work I'm doing and time I'm spending looking into this stuff, that it will resonate and have a benefit long term, I'm hoping, worldwide. And I'm going to tell you right now, there's nothing I'm going to focus on more from here on out. You ask me what I'm going to be doing into the future. I'm going to tell you. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. The next thing I'm going to focus on nonstop that no one has been aware of. In fact, it's so amazing to me what medical doctors are blinded to.
Is this a reveal?
Sure. Well, I mean, it can be. If you want.
Ladies and
That's
gentlemen, it's a reveal. He probably won't tell us everything, but he hasn't told anybody, but you're hearing it here first.
Yeah, and if you want to, contact Christina, my producer, and we'll actually set it up, and I'll take you through the first study that I want to highlight that's going to explain why it is I'm going to spend probably the rest of my life fighting and exposing this one thing.
I will
And
definitely do that. So you go ahead and do your reveal and then save all of the depth for, and we'll do that on Rumble.
sure. All right. So in 2017, there was a study that I saved about 8 months ago, but just first read through and actually dissected only 3 weeks ago. And I have done a few interviews on it and my own show on it. But this is going to launch me into the next thing that I need to make sure the world's aware of. In the journal called Journal of Venomous Animals and Toxins, including tropical diseases, in 2017, they published a study. It's actually a review of all studies for the last 60 years, and it is titled Antiviral Activity of Animal Venom Peptides and Related Compounds. And just to give you a hint of what's in this, just for kicks, they are now proposing, this is not a joke, in 2017, they are now proposing to start making vaccines for fever blisters and cold sores, which are caused by the herpes simplex virus. In this study, they confirm that and have shown patents that they are now going to start manufacturing anti-herpes cold sore vaccines from scorpion venom. Now, I don't know about you, but
let's talk about that for a minute, because there have been some medicinal uses of toxins. We see this holistic healers use bee venom for people who suffer from a wide array of things, from rheumatoid arthritis to multiple sclerosis. I think I said that right. MS. So is it necessarily a negative that they're doing that?
Oh no, I think the scientists believe they're doing work that's genuinely authentic and purposeful and helpful, beneficial only. I think that's what they're doing. I think that's what the researchers think. It's the people funding them that I have a problem with. The people that are funding them research and making them sign non-disclosure agreements not to talk about it, which is what they require, all of them. This is my problem. In the same paragraph where they say we have reasons to believe that scorpion venom and have patents secured that we can use scorpion venom isolated components to treat herpes, it says we also are suggesting and have found the inhibitive qualities of scorpion venom, the same one, to stop and inhibit SARS-CoV-1. Now, if you want to know what my problem is, here's the problem. Anthony Fauci's department in 2000 funded a study to see what would cure SARS-CoV-1, and hydroxychloroquine was found to do it perfectly. And he published it. They've known it since 2005. It's been on the market for 70 years at that point. Totally safe profile. If it's safe and effective, I'd like to know, why are we looking at scorpion venom 12 years later as a vaccine or treatment for something we know we have a non-toxic, beneficial and effective product for? Why are we looking for toxins? Why are we even suggesting to detoxify toxins and suggest injecting those into people? You've never needed to do that, ever. You have never needed venom ever once, ever. And one of the most disgusting things, I'll highlight this for you because people don't know. In the study, it proposes that snake venoms, a whole bunch of them, can be used as antiviral vaccines too. And it says the reason why this works is because we already have in clinical trials and in clinical experience used HIV drugs and had more success when we injected them with snake venom. And they said the reason why we think there's benefit from the snake venom is because, I'm going to quote here, snake venom components are homologous to HIV-1 glycoprotein. Now,
I wonder if Fauci likes it.
Everyone in the world, your antennas should go up. They just said HIV-1's glycoprotein, which is the spike protein outside of HIV, is homologous. Now, the science current definition of homologous is similar in evolutionary origin. Isn't that weird? Let's just say it again. HIV-1 glycoprotein is similar in evolutionary origin to snake venom components. And that should be alarming, by the way. How in the world is HIV similar to snake venom? Almost identical in origin? That's weird, unless it is the same origin. However, what they suggest and propose is because they're identical and similar, homologous, meaning they target the same cells to cause injury and death to your immune system or your body. They propose if we can inject snake venom inside of an HIV patient every 2 weeks, every 6 months, just give them a little bit more venom. The venom will bind to the receptors, the same ones, and when that the HIV glycoprotein targets. And if we can put venom on the outside of everybody's cells that has HIV, HIV cannot bind to the cell and move in to make you be infected and therefore develop future AIDS. Okay, all right. That is so insane, it's ridiculous. Why in the world would you want to use venom to bind to receptors and even suggest it might block the impact of a virus to actually bind to the same cell? Venom is toxic. Venom is deadly. Why would you do that? It's kind of like the same premise that Pharmacia likes to use. If you have cancer, you're unhealthy. Let's inject them with an unhealthy, toxic chemotherapy drug as a therapeutic. It's totally ridiculous. No one should trust it. No one should ever do it. There are other methods and ways to actually help people with cancer. Go follow the Truth About Cancer series. They'll teach you all about it. People around the world are curing it without chemotherapy. You don't need it. In fact, in the United States, Dr. Rashid Buttar has cured 40,000 people of patients with cancer in his Charlotte, North Carolina practice for the last 30 years, just using EDTA to detox heavy metals out of the body. I mean, there's ways of doing it. You don't need chemo to do it, and you don't need anything deadly to do it either. So as I go, they are already proposing, and in this review, this is going to be the kickoff, this actual study, they are already securing patents for venom-based vaccines to be now used for hepatitis B virus vaccine substitutions. Now, what's my problem with that? It's the only vaccine they give to children the first day they're born in America. Why would you ever want to inject that inside of a baby who isn't having sex with partners, multiple partners, and is not doing intravenous drugs, which is how you get hepatitis B? Why are you injecting that into every baby? It's so crazy. Anybody who's been hesitant for vaccines, you should be really hesitant now, because they are actually pushing forward all vaccines in the future to be venom-based. Rabies virus, all polio viruses, flu viruses, flu. Do you know in 2010, Paul F. Reed, a neurotoxic snake venom expert, was given a patent for a flu vaccine made from cobra toxin, king cobra venom. So just so you know, this is what they're doing. This is what they're up to. So I would never trust the vaccine agenda. They actually state in that 2017 review, this is very important. They state that the venom has zero direct effect on a virus. But that's what they want to use as a vaccine. They say it targets the exact same receptors on your cells that the virus would attach to move into your cells. I would have a huge, massive problem trusting that narrative. Why? Look at the various reports right now on these these COVID-19 vaccines. And you'll see that I have a lot of reasons why you shouldn't trust that. I would not play Russian roulette with my own children or their health ever. And I would definitely not trust the pharmaceuticals agenda in their proposed efforts, even if it's genuine, to use venoms as an antiviral therapeutic. You have never needed them. Never. You do not need venoms to cure a viral infection. Ever, 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 ever. That is a total misuse of those natural resources. So we should not be doing that.
Well, yeah, we'll definitely have to, when you're ready to go with that and have all your stuff laid out, we'll have to, I've
already got a whole presentation if you want to go over that actual study anytime soon. You let my producer know, we can do it.
Yeah, I'll definitely reach out to, is it Christina or Christine?
Yeah,
Christine.
Because there's a whole lot of stuff in there y'all need to see.
So
pretty amazing what they do.
When are you going to take some time off?
I always hoped it would actually start dying down after the new year, but it doesn't feel like it. I've actually had.
I mean, you're retired and
I am
you're
retired. When will that
clearly
calm down?
working harder.
I've actually never worked more in my entire life, and I've never been more tired at times than in my entire life, and I've never been more energized than I have
Which
in
is
my
why
entire
you're retired.
life. That's right. I'm retired. But anyway, I have no idea. I'm actually taking what we have built as a large following out of this, which I wasn't expecting. But we have a large following of people who want information from me all the time. So we're organizing the Doctor Ardis show, and we're going to be launching very soon what I'm going to call the Artist Club, because there's so many people that just want to hear from me and have like conversations with me. So we're going to do this kind of monthly thing where people who can either pay a small fee or something I can dedicate to things they're interested in and do presentations, education, and that kind of stuff will be very fun. We'll be launching that here in the next 2 months. And we want to make sure that's dialed in and get people's input of what they want for the future to try to help keep their families healthy and their loved ones healthy, and bring them some really credible information that can be applied to their lives and see massive improvement. So for me, it's really fascinating to actually look at what's published in the literature, actually surmise in your mind from your biology courses in the past, chemistry courses in the past, be able to see, can you make that make sense? And then take that information and apply it to audiences and then watch their lives improve. There is something really rewarding about that and has been very, very fascinating.
Do you foresee a time where you're going to be able to, and I know you've already said there's a lot of stuff coming down the pike for you, but do you foresee a time where you're going to be able to pass the mantle on to someone else and say, okay, I'm not that I don't care, but I'm stepping away. I'm going to go live my life. I've done what I can do. And
I really do think I'm going to have to. I actually do know this. I've already had conversations with my wife and others, but there will come a time where I will need to and want to step away from all the traveling engagements, like having to show up at audiences and wanting to be there. There's a part though during COVID where you could feel this like frenzied panic in people around the world. And I could read it in their emails, hear it in their phone calls, see it in their faces at places we were at. And there was a real part of me intentionally wanting to show up and stand in front of people and let them know you don't have to be afraid. I am a real person. I'm not just behind a screen. I'm going to show up for you. And I'm not scared to be in public. I'm not afraid to be on a plane. I'm not afraid to come up on stages. And you don't need to be afraid to be living your lives at home either. So that's really been a major attention of mine has been, I want you to see that I'm real, like a real human with a real wife, with real kids. They go with me. We have fun. It's exciting. But I want to be able to relate to people in a way that, to me, I find rewarding and fulfilling. So that will step away though, and I will limit to like maybe once a month or once every quarter agree to go to an event, and then I'll be selective of which ones those are. And then I will start to, you might want to jump on this, but I will start to limit how many online podcasts I do, because it has been, I will do anybody's anytime, because there's too many people that need to know this info. So it was just a real massive intent, and I had the time and the ability to do it, so that was great. But there will come a time where I'll need to back off of that a little bit and provide that to a very specific audience where I can laser focus in and be very intentional in helping them. But I still love educating audiences, and I love teaching people, and I love researching. I'm a nerd that way. I tell people I'm a cool nerd. Don't worry. I just love studying, and then I love being able to help people. So that's very exciting for me. And if I can't show you and then articulate it to you, it just creates confusion. So I have to be able to show you this is how you take the information, then apply it. For example, can I share a story real quick? Just a quick one.
absolutely.
When I came out with the Watch the Water documentary, I actually put at the very end of it, I said, you better list the antidotes. And they did. The antidotes to COVID all along. The number one was nicotine. This still isn't something other people want to talk about. It's pretty funny. However, hundreds of thousands, and when I say hundreds of thousands, I have heard from hundreds of thousands of people just by email around the world and via text messages for the last 10 months that all of their long hauler COVID symptoms, and we're talking loss of taste and smell, tinnitus, brain fog, heart palpitations, arrhythmias, loss of oxygen, can't get their oxygen up, exercise induced asthma and lethargy, all of that being reported back to me that in less than 3 days, sometimes in 30 minutes of just chewing one nicotine gum, all of their loss of taste and smell returns, tinnitus disappears, brain fog disappears, their heart arrhythmias improve. And to me, that's taking research studies that other people have done and then been able to tell people how to apply that stuff. And I had a lady in Florida this weekend. The attorney I was with, his name is Stan Graham. He's sitting across from me after I did my presentation to the FAA pilots and the flight school instructors and the owners. And I just presented all the information on the venom and the antidotes for it that you should consider. As I'm sitting across at the dinner with the presenters, the attorney says, "My God, the way you present is just phenomenal. People understand stuff when you say it." And I said, "It must have been something God gave me because I've never been taught how to talk. I just appreciate it." And he goes, "My wife, sitting across from you, got bit by a scorpion 8 weeks ago. In her right hand, and her right arm, all the way up to her neck, is on fire. Has been nonstop for 8 weeks. Neuropathy, shooting, pain up and down her arm, but it feels like it's on fire." And I said, "Okay." And he goes, "Now she's got weakness in her hands. She can't really raise her arm above her shoulders anymore. Can't touch the top of her head." And I'm looking at her, and I said, he goes, "Can you tell me any things you would recommend?" And I said, "Yeah, I've got 4 things you need to do right now." In front of everybody. Judy Mikovits is there with me. Everybody's there with me. And I just looked at her and I said, "Yeah, I can tell you how to fix it." And she goes, "What is it?" And I said, "I'm going to text him 4 things, and I'm going to tell you the exact doses to do, and you need to do them all together at the same time." The first one was nicotine, then it was NAC, then it was vitamin C, and then a small amount of what's called EDTA. I said, "Just do those 4 things. That'll clear it up." Well, Josh Yoder, who happens to have founded the U.S. Freedom Flyers group, he's the guy that's out protecting all the pilots. He goes, "Hey, I've got nicotine on me." He had pouches of nicotine, and he hands them one and says, "Here, go use this." And I said, "What's the dose on that?" 6 milligrams. I said, "Don't do that." And she's like, "Why?" And I said, "Because the principle is this. Venoms bind to nicotine receptors, but the body is designed to grab nicotine and have a higher affinity to nicotine than anything else in the body. That means in the presence of nicotine, if venom is bound to it, which in her case it is, she got stung by a scorpion. I know there's venom inside of her. This was not a conspiracy. I just said, you have venom inside of you. Take nicotine and take these other 3 things. Nicotine is to get the venom off the nerve so the symptom stops. No different than loss of taste and smell. Nicotine goes in, venom's let go. Now you can taste and smell. It's miraculous. However, venom is so toxic and evolutionarily amazing that it will actually stay in the human body circulating for up to 10 years if you don't detox it and get it out. It just stays in the body and it will move into an organ and cause problems no matter what. So I said, when you do the nicotine, do vitamin C, NAC, and EDTA, all of which detox venom so you can excrete it. She takes in the morning, her husband calls me. I'm at the airport flying away. They're still there. He calls me to tell me his wife is sobbing, crying on the bed. And I thought it was from pain. And I said, "What's she dealing with?" He goes, No. She demanded I give her that 6 milligram nicotine pouch last night that Josh gave us. She started sucking on it, laying on the bed. Within 3 minutes of sucking on the nicotine, every single symptom of neuropathy disappeared. And I said, "That's miraculous. You better make her spit it out." So I said, "That's miraculous. No, spit it out." And he goes, No. She's crying with joy because of the relief. And I said, No. She doesn't understand. That venom's moving from the nerves in her arms. And the only way it goes out is you poop it out or pee it out. She's going to get real nauseous real quick and want to vomit and diarrhea. Not a joke. While I'm on the phone, she's like, "I feel nauseous, like I'm going to throw up." He goes over there and pulls it out of her mouth. And I said, "You better drink some water or something. And please only use the small dose I recommended and have always recommended. Do 2 milligrams in the morning at the same time you're doing the other 3 things that will destroy the venom with it." So it's not a bad thing to throw up and get diarrhea if you have poisoning in your bowels. I mean, have you had food poisoning before? This isn't weird. It's not a side effect. No, it is an effect of poison. The body will get nauseous and either vomit it out or diarrhea it out. And once it's out, it's out. But no one likes living in that scenario. So to minimize that, take the nicotine with these 3 elements that are published to denature and detoxify venoms. And then you can win. So it's actually just one of those principles, like I just mentioned. It's amazing to do research. Look at the physiology they are publishing, the reasons why it works, study its mechanisms of actions. And then when you can apply them to people and improve their lives. How damn cool is that? I'm telling you, I had a medical doctor out of Australia after watching Watch the Water. And if she got nothing out of it than this, she said when she saw the antidote was nicotine, my first one listed, this medical doctor had lost 100% hearing in her right ear from COVID and was told by her auditory specialist that she had permanent hearing loss for life. 2 years she had complete 100% hearing loss in her right ear. She texted a media personality to send me her message. And the message was, Dr. Ardis, at 15 minutes, I felt a pop in my ear after actually chewing the nicotine. Like she felt something happening in her ear. At 30 minutes, she started to hear. It would go in and out. At 45 minutes, she had 100% hearing restored. And that is just a principle. I mean, I didn't have her. She didn't do anything else. She just chewed the nicotine on top of everything else she'd been trying for 2 years, which is everything we've been recommending, I'm sure. But those kind of stories are just incredible to me. Like, to me, that's a huge blessing. And it's what brings the reward to me during my retired period, buddy. It's like,
Yeah, sure.
these principles and apply them that you're reading.
Good thing you're retired.
It's actually a damn good thing I retired, or else I'd have never had the time to look at this stuff ever. I mean, I was so exhausted every weekend. I would have never had the time to sit and actually be prepared for this. I really do think it was an opportunity, whether or not granted by God, for me to experience. But when I watched my father-in-law die in a hospital, everything I watched was exactly what was published was going to be coming from the R word when Anthony Fauci declared it to be the only drug used in hospitals worldwide. It was.
Did I disappear?
You did for a minute. But
thanks for keep going.
Yeah, no worries. I just thought you wanted them to see me for a minute. I don't know.
That's it. That's
just
all.
Focus on this guy. I thought this was you being a producer and an editor all of a sudden. Like, we're going to edit this guy.
Well, I am my own showrunner, scheduler, host, legal counsel, which gets me nowhere. We
Gold Eagle. You're very welcome, and I really love hearing those stories.
Yeah, I'm glad that she shared that. So, we're definitely going to want to get you on. Yeah, she says TC is a one-man show.
Yeah,
in
good.
a lot of ways.
Talented man.
We did have one person ask. I'm trying to find it again. The chats whip by, and I don't always see them. That's why they put the super chats in these colors, is so that you can see it when it goes by. Oh, there was somebody was inquiring as to whether or not you, if you know, and we'll make this the last question, and then I got one other thing I'll say, and then we'll get you to bed so you can be ready to
That'd be great
for your 10 other interviews tomorrow.
Start a tank. That's good. No, this is great.
Was curious as to whether or not you're seeing in pharmacology that the venom is being used in other ways, or
yes,
it is not just in vaccines and whatnot.
Yes. Yeah, there's 3 major published ways since the 70s in the manufacturing of synthetic venoms. Now, when I say that, synthetic venoms are actually just as biologically deadly and toxic as the real stuff. They figured out how to do that back in the 70s. They use 3 primary reasons for manufacturing high volumes of synthetic venoms all over the world. Number 1 is for pharmaceuticals, creating drugs, and for creating vaccines. Number 2 is as an insecticide. I don't know if y'all know this right now, but Michigan State University helped to synthesize synthetic scorpion venom that now is being used as an insecticide, being sprayed out of crop dusters all over the farms in England. Imagine inhaling that. But anyway, if you're walking by. Anyway, so insecticides are a huge, huge synthetic venom manufacturing use, currently being activated right now. And then, and by the way, if they're spraying that on your farms, when they spray water on those farms, where does that water go? Anyway, next. And then the third one is cosmetics. Cosmetics is a massive, big business with synthetic venoms. They are making anti-wrinkle creams, injections, anti-aging agents, all from venoms. They're using man, it's a big business in cosmetics. In fact, if y'all want to have fun with that, there's a company in China. China is the largest manufacturer of all synthetic venoms. If you go to China, go to madeinchina.com and then type in venom peptides, and it will bring up thousands of manufacturers of venom that they actually manufacture. And once they're done with it, it comes in a little lyophilized, freeze-dried powdered form that they just add to cosmetics or spray out of planes or dilute in water and inject inside of you as drugs. Those are the three primary areas, massively large.
What did you say that was made in China?
Madeinchina.com. And then just
Is
type
it-
in search. Yeah, made in China. When I found this website, I was like, that's funny. Let's see how many cosmetic
weird.
products making with venoms.
It won't come up for me.
No, really? Yeah, madeinchina.com. I'll see if it comes up for me. Make sure I'm right about that. Hopefully. It's been a few months since I was on there, but I was shocked when I saw it. Oh, yeah, that didn't come up for me either. All right, so let me see what it is. Hold on a second. You got to stay there because I hate saying stuff and you can't show you. All right, here we go. All right, so it is madeinchina.com, but it has dashes in between made and in China. So made-in-china.com. In fact, if you Google it, just type in made in China, snake venom, and then it pulls up all the products. And I'm just going to say it here if you want to know. This is what I believe they're doing at all the water treatment plants around the world to cause COVID. I believe they're taking lyophilized freeze-dried powder, just like fluoride is a lyophilized freeze-dried powder, just like all of these. And I believe they're simply just dropping it in with those cartridges they use already.
Yeah, folks, he is not kidding.
I'm not kidding.
I'm
So
not going to show it because that'll be the one thing that the algorithm will pick up on.
But look at it. You'll see Korean anti-aging, anti-wrinkle cream from the melasma snake venom peptide. I mean, there's thousands of these. There's probably thousands. You can even look up ones. If you do the made in China, you go to the top, you can either type in the word snake venom, you can type in scorpion venom, you can type in spider venom, and you come up with all the manufacturers who sell this stuff to pharmaceutical industries, cosmetic manufacturers, insecticide companies. This is one of the places I found them. I was like, wow, there's a lot of this going on around the world. It's pretty crazy. I mean, I just typed in snake venom peptides on Made in China. There's 456 products from 16 different manufacturers just in China. This ain't no small thing. There's a lot of it going on around the world. I just didn't know it. This is all new to me. I know it's shocking to others, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's massive. They're doing it all over the place, all over.
Well, everybody heard it, so you guys can look that up for yourselves if you'd like, because I guarantee if I flash that up there, it'll
in fact, on that site, type in scorpion venom, and it will come up with these adhesive bandages that if you have knee pain or elbow pain, they have now scorpion infused band-aids that you just slap on your skin and your body absorbs the venom to try to negate the pain because it paralyzes you. That's why. So they give you a little bit of the venom peptides to just paralyze your nerves, which is great as an analgesic. You shouldn't be injecting that into babies or adults or children, I don't think. So anyway, I have a big problem with this. When we know there are solutions in nature that actually handle the whole scenario, I don't know why we need to look for a toxin to do it.
Nettles.
There you go.
They're toxic. They
Yeah.
make me feel like garbage, but boy, everybody swears by their healing
I don't use them.
I'm not interested.
I do not. All right, buddy. Was that a good answer? Did you?
No,
that help you?
that was absolutely fine. She's Sarah says, for the love of liberty, like this video while live. Let's help TC fight the algorithm. If you, she sends money to help me fight the algorithm.
That's awesome. Good. We need you fighting it. Keep it up.
Well, I appreciate that.
Very well.
So Dana messaged me and she said, make sure that he knows we want to have him on Behind the Curtain. And we definitely do, but we'll do that for your next project. And I will reach out to your producer
Yeah,
And
it's
I know she's been busier. Ann has reminded me several times that she's been busier in a one-legged man in a butt kicking contest lately.
Mhm.
So I can't imagine why.
It's been a wild ride. It was too much. I had to get people to help me. All right, so I want you to type in something there, buddy. Ready?
Oh no,
On your
I'm
page,
not
don't
that
show it.
fast.
Just look it up, okay?
Yep.
I want you to type in www.valent.com.
Okay.
And I mentioned to you that they use this worldwide. They make enough of this to spray it all over farms. Look at the name of this company. Look at their
Oh
trademark
wow.
product. Just one. This is just one. This is the first one that popped up when I just searched it. There's tons of these all over the world.
Wow. Yeah, guys, look that up. Valent.com.
Now, listen, if they have enough to spray out of planes over farmland, there is a massive amount of this stuff. Like, it isn't just a little. They know how to make a bunch of it to cover wide acres, tracts of land and plants. And why do they use venoms? Because insects are the hunted food of scorpions. So they believe that if you just spray scorpion venom all over plants, when the bugs crawl on it and eat the plant that has scorpion venom on it, it's going to kill the animal. Guess who they want to eat that food? The food's being grown for you. I'd be very leery of using this crap. I don't know how they think they've mastered this stuff to be safe for human consumption, but you should probably clean your veggies and your fruits. They're using it all over the place. This is just one of many, 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 many companies spraying venom all over their lands of farmlands. This is not a little deal. It is a large scale manufacturing worldwide of synthetic venoms. They are actually venom analogs homologous to the actual venom found in the animals. It's pretty wild, man. I did not know this was at all what was going on in the world. I had to learn, and now I'm trying to educate and bring people up to speed.
I can't, like I said, I can't thank you enough for your time, and I wish I would have, known how to get a hold of you sooner. And we have to thank our friend Ann for making that connection, and and
Worry.
it's it. I've had to tell people, look, I don't do sensationalism. I've already said that before, and I probably should have taken a step back. And I waited quite a while before I even did my kind of review of what I saw there. But I appreciate your willingness to come on, and you didn't know what you're walking into. I mean, I told Chris, I don't do gotcha stuff. I really don't. And if somebody says something I think needs to be pushed back on, I do that. But I appreciate you taking the time to do this. I know you're a busy guy, and I know you got a lot on your plate. But we will definitely be reaching out to you guys. To my people, will talk to you. Okay, I will talk to your people, and we'll make that happen so that we can get you on for behind the curtain and to talk about the new project, because I think that's going to tie in well with what we've got going on there over on Rumble. And I wish you the best. I hope that you're able to settle down. I like at some point everybody's got to take a break, and sometimes, like the last strike I got on YouTube, I was kind of like, you know what, I needed the 2 weeks off. It's at the end of December, and going into the new year, I'm
Yeah,
gives
you're
me
right.
a chance to reset, and I didn't, but that's what I said I was going to do. So um, I hope you have a safe trip this week down to Nashville. I mean, you're going to be going into should be pretty friendly country down there in Nashville. So
Well, I've been one of the primary speakers on that tour for a long time, so it'll be very fun. This was a little bit different. I think I'm excited to see if it's a little bit different feel, because Clay actually wanted to cancel all these future events at the end of December. He never wanted to do another one. And it was General Mike Flynn and Kash Patel that asked him to continue it, but just do it on a quarterly basis. So this is the first now of a quarterly attempt to try to do this. So this one now, and then another one in May. And General Flynn and Kash Patel had given him a list of people they wanted to make sure were included. And they said, please make sure Dr. Ardis is there at every one of them. So I love that they enjoy my presentations and think I'm a good enough speaker to continue to do that. But the
Well,
goals,
you're definitely engaging.
well, I hope so. That's good. Thank you.
Well,
We're
no,
trying.
I don't do any. It's like I don't do any scripting or pre-writing of questions or anything. So everybody's like, "How do you do that?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I wouldn't know how to do it if I was trying to read it off a script." So
Yeah, I think there's some of us just have that ability. I do not script any of my shows either. I don't do my
okay,
interviews scripted. I just go into it and I want to have an organic conversation and see where it goes. That's the most exciting thing to me.
I get people all the time. They're like, "Your shows are so long. I don't have the time for them." And I'm like, "Break it into pieces.
Yeah,
Call it a cliffhanger.
that's right.
Pause at the commercials because after this live stream, once it processes, if they let it stay up, there'll be 45,000 10-second commercials in there, and I make 1 penny per commercial, maybe. So,
Well,
well,
this is good. Thank you, buddy.
Dr. Ardis, I really appreciate your time, and I will be reaching out to your producer so we can get you on for Behind the Curtain. So,
Look forward to it. You guys
thank,
have a blessed day, man.
thank you. You too. Have a good night.
Good
Take
night.
care. Ladies and gentlemen, I had said in my breakdown of Watch the Water that I would love to have Dr. Ardis on, and I didn't think it was going to be like this. One, I didn't think it was going to happen. Um, two, if it did happen, I thought it would be more uh, less back and forth in the sense of, hey, tell me a little bit more about yourself, and a lot more of like, let's break this down, and having dug into Dr. Ardis and dug into the work that Bryan has done. I was very reticent to come at him super hard, and I'll admit, like, you guys want to see it. I have the my response to the documentary is up. I still take exception to some of the stuff that was in there. I don't know how much of it was sensationalism, how much of it was cut and moved around to make it fit in just the right way. I guess I don't really care, because there's definitely some stuff that he is dead on when it comes to the medical aspect of this. And I think it's, we've got a lot of people out there, uh, that are fighting this fight, and we're still seeing people get censored. I fully expect that by the time I wake up tomorrow morning, I will have gotten another flag on this account and another 2-week timeout from mommy and daddy at YouTube. And so while we can get this out there, I will be reserving the video to put it up on Rumble if they do try and take this down. But in the meantime, if you guys could um, share this and share it and share it and share it and share it, so the people can hear, the research that he's done. And if you know of people who have been impacted, I'm putting this out there. If you know people that have been impacted, especially by the jab, who have lost loved ones or who themselves are suffering an injury, I would like to have them on for a Rumble exclusive series as well, where we talk about that, to get those stories out there, because we don't hear a lot of talk about it in Minnesota. The media in Minnesota doesn't cover it as much as you might see in some other states. And and it doesn't just have to be Minnesota people. It can be anybody. I just want to tell these stories. That's all I've ever wanted to do with this platform. I wanted to talk about what I have been observing in culture and in society, and from the state. I wanted to talk about that, and I wanted to tell people stories from day one. My very first day of this platform. My very first day. If you guys go back to my very first video, it was man on the street interviews after my introductory video at a protest in front of the governor's mansion here in Minnesota. 10, 15, 20 of them. My very first day. All I want to do is tell these stories. You guys make your own decisions. You come to your own conclusions. That's all I'm asking. I'm not demanding a conclusion from you. I'm not demanding that you agree with me. All I'm asking for is that people watch and listen and form their opinions, draw their conclusions from what's there, and then and stop believing the hype in the mainstream media, in the legacy media, and to ask themselves what's really happening. And as I said earlier with Bryan, we don't need to see Satan behind every blade of grass. We don't need to see demons influencing everything. I'm so sick and tired of that. I'm tired of it from Christians and non-Christians. It's just everybody talks that way. Sometimes people do evil things because they're evil. They're evil. And when we blame Satan for it, what we're really doing is we're taking the onus off of them. People are responsible for their actions, period. Nobody looks at Jeffrey Dahmer and said, Satan made Jeffrey Dahmer murder those people. No, he didn't. Jeffrey Dahmer murdered people because he was sick and twisted and evil. Period. When Cain rose up and killed Abel, murdered his brother, Satan didn't make him do it. He did it because he had an evil heart. And when we look at people like Biden and Harris and here in Minnesota, we look at Walz and we look at Ellison and all of these others, and whatever state you might be in, what we do is when we go, oh, these people are controlled by the devil. These people, what we sound like is exactly what they want us to sound like, which is a bunch of crackpots who do not understand. Who don't understand that people left to their own devices do evil things because they're evil and they have agendas. Satan's not back there behind the scenes pulling strings. He's not back there making these things happen. In fact, oftentimes if he got involved, things would be a lot prettier and a lot neater and wrapped up in nice little, tight little, beautiful packages that even Christians would accept and go, wow, that's really kind of cool. I wish we could do more of that. And I don't do this as much as I used to, but I'm going to throw this out here for people right now. Like, everybody's got this picture of what is evil. And I want you guys to close your eyes and think about when you think of evil and you think of Satan, when you think of the enemy, you picture this grotesque, ugly thing. And what the scriptures describe as evil is Satan is this angel of light who comes like a ministering spirit to do wonderful things, to entice you, to seduce you. Does any of what we've been going through for the last 3 years in particular make you feel like it's been wrapped up in a nice little package? No, it's because it's not a work of Satan. It's a work of evil hearts, of corrupt men and women who are doing evil things that benefit them because they're greedy bastards. And all they want is power. And not every person in a position of power is corrupt and evil, but every person who craves power and control is doing so because they have an evil desire to have that power and control over you. From the hospitals that don't care about how they're treating people, to politicians, to people in positions of authority and who are just following orders. They just want the power, and they're to blame for their actions. That's it. That's all. So stop looking for demons and Satan behind every blade of grass and start recognizing it's the evil intent of the hearts of men. And they're going to answer for that. Someday, somehow, they will answer for that. And that's what you need to know. Their agenda is their agenda. Period. Well, thanks, Jules. Thank you so much. Somehow this came through my notification, so this is my first time to your page. So glad I got to be able to watch this interview. Thank you very much. I hope that you liked it enough that you subscribed and that you'll share before they take me down. So, my friends, thank you so much for being here for Season 2, Episode 1 of TC and Friends Monday Night Musings. And I hope that you guys are able to pluck something out of this that is useful to you until they take it down. And then you can look for it on Rumble. And you can find me on Rumble as well, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment on Rumble. And if you're interested and you would like to help me keep this going away from here, you can either send me a super thanks or a super chat or a super thank you once this is done processing, or you can head over to Subscribestar and pick a level of support there. That helps me keep the internet and the electricity on. And as everybody knows right now, that's not always easy this time of year. So, especially with prices being what they are. So I really appreciate everybody that watches and everybody that shares and everybody that comments, even people that detract. And like I end all of my shows, until next time, my friends, fight for your liberty. It belongs to you. Fight for your freedom. It is yours. And Sic Semper Tyrannis.
We are going for liftoff in T-minus 30.
Stand by for further instructions, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment.
Secondary guidance systems engaged.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, it will be on my mark.
All systems are a go. All systems are a go.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, you are over the target. You are authorized to fire at will.